Empathy is what makes the world a place of profound beauty. Empathy transcends cultures and brings people together to care for each other in our greatest times of need. It is because of empathy that moments of human triumph and tragedy leave lasting impressions. Empathy is the embodiment of what it means to be human. Our survival as a species is a direct result of empathy. Humans have a great capacity for kindness and empathy. In fact, I would argue that our ability to think of the needs of others and place them before our own is without equal. Empathy is the foundation of all social species, and without it, life is reduced to a chaotic state of self-survival predicated on violence. Human society has flourished and conquered planet Earth precisely because of our capacity to empathize, allowing us to sacrifice our own needs to provide for those of our family, nation, and more recently, all of humankind. We are a social species that relies heavily on our connections to work collectively toward mutually beneficial goals. These same traits are present in other species to a lesser degree. What sets us apart is the ability to look beyond our current situation and the obvious similarities of our closest social unit and find reflections of ourselves in other people and animals that look, behave, or believe differently from us. While many of us are embracing the qualities that connect us and propel humanity forward, there is a large segment of the population that is resisting this evolution of thought that is vital to the survival of our species. Xenophobia, racism, sexism, and bigotry of all kinds continue to divide humanity and prevent us from overcoming tribalism and reaching our full potential. Critics will point out that bigotries and tribalism are natural and exist in all cultures throughout time. They will also point out that humans, like other animals, have survived by killing and exploiting those that are weaker. Observable facts that I will not dispute, but are these requirements for survival, or simply a justification of primitive conditions that can be overcome? What is it that separates us from more primitive life? Do we not think of ourselves as more intelligent and superior to all other life on the planet? Surely everyone would agree that our ability to reason and think abstractly is at the heart of our success. With the ability to analyze and plan comes a need to divide work into categories to allow freedom from the mundane routine of meeting basic daily survival needs, like gathering food or finding shelter. Everyone needs to cooperate and buy into this social contract to attain a higher standard of living. While we are born into this system and take many of its tenets for granted, we need to be reminded that without social contracts, we would be no more successful at conquering our environment than a pride of lions or a school of fish, fighting every day just to survive. Our modern life and its conditions attest to the efficacy of large-scale social cooperation, a fact that has demonstrated that it not only works, but is scalable. The larger the cooperative group, the greater the benefit for humankind. It only stands to reason that we should continue implementing this model and scaling our projects and goals to benefit everyone. This vision is shared by many, and we see lots of examples today. The scientific community has built partnerships that transcend political and religious boundaries. Even among geopolitics, we have formed organizations that promote unity and encourage peaceful cooperation. We are living in the least violent time period in recorded history precisely because we have formed larger social contracts. The road has been rough and paved with great suffering at the hands of those that resist cooperation with anyone they deem as the other. Bigotry and hatred fuel the desire to exclude those that are judged not worthy of receiving benefits from social contracts. People form groups out of racial identity or religious ideology and attempt to ostracize others and deny them the rights afforded by membership in the larger group. This is not simply the dynamics of the in-group and the out-group, as the actions of the exclusion is not simply from the in-group, but rather an attempt to co-opt the larger group, such as a nation or humankind. As with Nazi Germany, the basis of the Volk was to narrowly define what it meant to be German, and to set the stage for exclusion. The people looking to discriminate and deny social rights to others are attempting to project their in-group identity to act as a qualifier for the larger group that they also identify with. Religion is the best example of this, as not only do they practice this in relation to nationality and humankind, they practice it within. Every believer adopts their own interpretation of dogma, creating an esoteric version of the religion that they then use to judge others' beliefs. In Christianity, this equates to 45,000 plus denominations claiming to have the one true interpretation, resulting in Baptists disqualifying Catholics, Lutherans disqualifying progressives, Pentecosts disqualifying Eastern Orthodox, and non-denominationals disqualifying anyone that disagrees with them at all. Every group maintains that they are the one true Christian, and everyone else has just gotten it wrong. So while every denomination meets the basic criteria for being a Christian, each group attempts to co-opt the religion as a whole and decide who is actually a member. In-groups are by definition divisive. They create qualifiers that people use to exclude others, and the stronger the affiliation with the in-group, the more likely they are to dehumanize others. African slaves were portrayed as a subspecies of human, and Christian nationalists paint non-Christians as demons possessed by evil spirits. Both are attempting to create an environment in which it is okay to use violence against people from their perceived outgroup. The relationship between identity in the in-group and empathy for others is inversely proportional. This dynamic is the most dangerous aspect of human behavior. It threatens to wipe away thousands of years of progress. We live in a very pivotal and unique period in human history. We have struggled and fought for our existence against all comers. For thousands of years, our social circles were limited by our knowledge and our daily lives reduced to interacting with people that looked like us, thought like us, and acted like us. As we encountered cultures that differed from our own, it wasn't always apparent that we had more to gain through cooperation than we did from taking what they had. Even as we began to open trade routes and dialogue with foreign cultures, the in-group mentality persisted as we tried to come to terms with customs and traditions that we didn't understand. As our interaction increased, we have learned how similar we are, and with it, our empathy and understanding have increased. As new technologies developed, it allowed us to share information more easily, increasing the complexity of our endeavors and bringing more people into social contracts. The printing press brought books to a wider audience, and with it, literacy to millions that previously were limited to oral instruction, which resulted in leaps of human progression in understanding the world. Even as the average person was still illiterate and engaged in daily tasks not unfamiliar to primitive cultures, the groundwork was being laid for modern society by those with access to books. The scientific method refined our analysis of information, and humans began to think more abstractly than ever. Projects became bigger and required more cooperation. It wasn't long before we had entered the industrial age, and humans had left behind the days when they relied on themselves to forage or scavenge for most of their needs. We had all entered into a larger social contract that narrowed our daily focus to a trained craft, while broadening our access to the world. Each milestone in human progression has required greater cooperation and empathy for others, proving time again that our identity as humans is far more beneficial than any in-group identity could ever be. In fact, human history has proven that identifying with in-groups such as religion, race, and even nation is antithetical to human progress. It creates division and opens the doorway to dehumanization. We are all humans. That is the only in-group we belong to with demonstrated value. We must shed our primitive roots and embrace all humans as equals, worthy of respect, and all of the freedoms necessary to live their best life. It is no accident that all cultures and religions have some form of the golden rule. In Buddhism, hurt not others with that which pains yourself. From the Christian New Testament, so in everything do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. In the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad said, "None of you truly believes until he loves for his brother that which he loves for himself." And finally, in Hinduism, one should not behave toward others in a way which is disagreeable to oneself. Every culture has recognized the need for empathy to attain cooperation and understanding. Empathy is the most basic attribute of consciousness recognized by infants in the facial expressions of others. Children react to the emotions of others without any ability to understand the cause of the emotion, proving it is a fundamental attribute of cognition required for the survival of social species. In the United States, the Declaration of Independence recognizes that all people are created equal, and this grants them unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is not achievable without empathy for others. This fundamental respect for others is vital to social cooperation, and the founders included it for this very reason. They had experienced firsthand the tyranny of government and religion that disregarded this basic right. It is for this reason that they used empathy and respect as the foundation for their actions in declaring independence. We have but one life to live, and everyone deserves to share in the human experience and all of the beauty the world has to offer. That is the ideal that America is built on, and only through empathy and cooperation can we make this a reality.